on the pharmaceutical manufacturing industry in Zambia, looking at the challenges and opportunities. So I think just to give a brief background, the pharmaceutical industry in Zambia is an important component in the health sector, critical to delivering a health and productive population. Other authors have indicated that Zambia has 5 main manufacturers of pharmaceutical products. The report also gives a projection that the production represents 10 to 15% of the demand for pharmaceutical products in Zambia. Likewise, several other developing African countries are not able to produce and meet the demand of most essential drugs to supply to its population, as the country largely depends on medical imports from countries, especially India. That was cited by Chongo and Chituta recently in 2021. Currently, about 80% of Africa's continent's medical and pharmaceutical products are actually imported. Shortages of medicines and lack of products such as vaccines in most countries during the pandemic brought into question the sustainability of highly depending on life-saving pharmaceutical imports and revealed a gap in which pharmaceutical industry in Africa can actually take up. However, the government of the Republic of Zambia is trying to reduce the cost of importation of conventional medicine by promoting the setting up of manufacturing of essential medicine locally. However, developing a strong pharmaceutical industry in Zambia will require government to invest in pharmaceutical research and development, R&D, facilities, coupled with strong partnership with the private sector players in ensuring that indigenous knowledge systems are basically utilized. Now let's look at the potential opportunities for promoting the local manufacturing industry. So I think one of the important aspects that gives us an impetus for the country to develop the pharmaceutical industry is that the COVID-19 pandemic represents the most significant motivation for the local manufacturing of goods in Zambia, which includes the manufacturing of drugs and other pharmaceutical-related products. We could see that as the pandemic gathered momentum beginning March 2020, it became apparent that this would affect imports of bulk goods consumed in the country. This is a major push factor for the manufacturing sector to step up and meet the market demand, including demand for pharmaceutical products. Zambia has identified the manufacturing sector as one of the leading sectors in the effort to revitalize the economy. This has actually been re-emphasized by the current government, and this was echoed even during the budget presentation. The potential opportunities for the pharmaceutical manufacturing industry can also best be identified through the challenges that we have been going through. And some of these challenges are basically lack of incentives, lack of adequate trained human capacity, lack of capital, limited market size, infrastructure and regulatory capacity on standards being inadequate, no partnership for technology transfer, and the reliance on imported finished goods. So we also see that another important opportunity would be the political will, as it being one of the best factor that brings into the aspect of partnership between government and the private sector in this regard, as this can be seen within the 2022 national budget to support the manufacturing sector. So the private sector can actually drive this process, and government is keen to support this. it can be argued that the economic status of the country is poised to shift towards favorable atmosphere. It is expected that Zambia's economy will return to growth trajectory between 2021 to 2020, following the recession it had in 2020. The resultant strain in the fiscal situation means that there is need to scale up spending on medicine that can be produced locally. I think when we produce locally, if we produce locally and we ensure that we support the local manufacturing industry, we can actually reduce the cost of the pharmaceutical products. Then lastly, there is actually an issue to do with the indigenous knowledge systems. We actually have a number of local innovations that are sitting with a number of our local traditional doctors, as well as I would give an example of the Sondash formula and many other indigenous knowledge products that we can actually support. But this basically lies into growing and transforming our local pharmaceutical industry to give rise to opportunities where these people can be able to tap. In terms of the adequacy of the policy and legal framework governing the pharmaceutical industry, at national level, the principal legislation in the legal framework for the manufacture of pharmaceutical is the Medicines and Allied Substances Act of number 3 of 2013. This actually established the Medicines Regulatory Authority, ZAMRA, as the statutory national body for medicines. Under Section 3 of the Act, ZAMRA is vested with the authority to regulate, control the manufacture, importation, storage, distribution, supply, sale, and use of medicines and allied substances. This regulation function is a combination of legal, administration, and technical measures taken to ensure quality, safety, and efficacy of medicines is guaranteed. So under this act, the manufacturer is defined as in relation to the medical and allied substance. This includes any process carried out in the course of making the medicine or allied substance. However, this does not include dissolving or dispensing a product in or diluting or mixing it with or some other substance for the purposes of administering it, or the incorporation of medicine in any animal feed. So this definition automatically cuts out the secondary production, or rather formulation of bulk pharmaceuticals into various dosages, forms that do not qualify as manufacturing. So in short, for something to be called a manufactured product, it has to meet the stated conditions. The Act is enforced through a number of guidelines as follows. So there is an aspect of aggregate shop permit regulation, dispensing of certificate regulation, then health shop regulation, fees regulations, medicines and allied substances regulation, as well as the certification of registration. Other laws in the governing the legal framework also include the Allied Zambia Bureau of Standards Act, Chapter 416 of the Laws of Zambia, the Public Health Act, Chapter 295. So in addition, the Ministry of Health, through the Zambia Bureau of Standards, is one of the collaborating institutions that ensures the efficacy and safety of medicines in Zambia is guaranteed. So the Zambia Bureau of Standards actually play a critical role in ensuring that the safety and the efficacy of medicines is actually guaranteed through the enforcement of standards. Then at regional and international level, Zambia also subscribes to the trade-related aspects of intellectual property rights, the TRIPS agreement, which is an agreement administered by the World Trade Organization, setting down minimum standards for many forms of intellectual property regulation. So Zambia, being a member of the World Trade Organization, we basically have to comply with these regulations. The African Union has also taken a policy position with regards to the local production of generic medicines to make a full use of TRIPS. Then access to medicine is an issue that is discussed at continental level in light of the common health challenges in a number of countries. So now we look at the role of non-state actors in complementing government efforts to promote the local pharmaceutical manufacturing industry. So apart from government championing the agenda in terms of the improvement in the manufacturing, in the pharmaceutical industry, there are non-state actors that play advocacy role. So non-state actors have a coordinated voice when it comes to advocacy. Their advocacy, therefore, results into the formulation of a favorable and progressive policies, strategies, frameworks, among other things. The other aspect is also resource mobilization and financing. In complementing government efforts towards addressing specific health issues in the country, non-state actors mobilize resources from cooperating partners with erratic funding that we actually know that not all that is basically budgeted for is assumed that it is going to be met by the budget. We actually require that cooperating partners, non-state actors, come into force and help in the financing of other health-related matters. The other aspect also is providing technical support to the Ministry of Health. Non-state actors are instrumental in providing technical support to the Ministry of Health. For example, I think we have quite a number of activities that the Ministry of Health have been undertaking, but these are actually provided for by the non-state actors, who could be NGOs, other cooperating partners, and so on. Another aspect that the non-state actors are key here is research. So when we talk of research and development, non-state actors are actually very critical in conducting empirical evidence-based policy research as well as scientific research. We have a number of institutions in this country that, and critical is one of them is CIDAS, that have been doing quite research and complementing government efforts and providing evidence-based both policy and scientific research results. The measures that have been put in place by government to enhance the local pharmaceutical manufacturing industry. These measures basically, we probably have to acknowledge the fact that to understand this, government has sought to reform the pharmaceutical sector with the Pharmaceutical Act of number 4 of 2004 being repealed and replaced by the Medicines and Allied Substances Act number 3 of 2013. So initially before repealing this act, the Pharmaceutical Regulatory Authority was the main body overseeing the pharmaceutical industry. But then later on, this was renamed to the Zambia Medicines Regulatory Authority in 2013 and expanded its mandate so that there would be efficacy as well as quality in terms of enforcing the law. So Zambia has been tasked to do the registration of pharmaceutical products for use on the Zambian market, submission of evaluation reports to Medicines Committee for consideration before inclusion of products on the register, as well as forecasting and quantification of medicines, which is done by the Ministry of Health Directorate. of clinical care and diagnostic services, pharmacy unit, in collaboration with the other partners. So this unit is also responsible for capacity building in the pharmaceutical management in the public sector health institutions. In addition, government, in terms of measures to promote this sector, government has put in place a measure to promote setting up of manufacturing plants related to pharmaceuticals in the multi-facility economic zone by ensuring that they provide incentives so that we can have many players coming into the manufacturing of drugs in Zambia.
Under challenges faced by government to heighten manufacturing in the local pharmaceutical industry, we have several challenges. These include inadequate infrastructure investment in the pharmaceutical industry. So there is limited investment in the industry, and perhaps this can be attributed to the capital-intensive investment that is required for the industry to develop and thrive. Equally, there is limited investment in technological advancements and equipment, which poses a challenge for advancing local clinical research and trials for drug development. We can also cite a challenge that came up due to the COVID-19 pandemic relating to our reliance on medical supplies from India and China. So the disruption and logistical challenges that were heightened by the COVID-19 pandemic are a clear example for why Zambia needs to boost investment in its pharmaceutical industry in order to meet local and regional demand for pharmaceutical supplies. Investment in the local pharmaceutical industry should also help drive the cost of quality healthcare to an affordable standard. Therefore, there is need to prioritize investment in the pharmaceutical industry in order to support local manufacturing of medical supplies. Another challenge is that of inadequate human resource. So there are limited opportunities for specialization and continuous professional development that is needed in order to boost the local pharmaceutical industry. Equally, opportunities for the development of skills through skills transfer is a potential challenge for the advancement of the local pharmaceutical industry. Therefore, there is need to invest in developing the technical expertise in order to conduct clinical trials and research to grow the sector. There is also need to offer incentives to attract personal capacity for technical development and expertise among scientists, academia, and practitioners in order to encourage the development of human capacity and skills. The third challenge is that of inadequate funding towards research and development. A prioritization of funding towards research and development in clinical research and trials is essential in developing new knowledge, which is key in the pharmaceutical industry and the development of groundbreaking treatments. So equally, funding towards research and development could help exploit and leverage on indigenous knowledge that has proved to be critical in responding to societal needs. Funding, therefore, towards research can be channeled to the development of traditional medicines into clinical standard drugs. This could also help recognize indigenous knowledge and spearhead the safeguarding of intellectual property in Zambia. Globally, we have seen that traditional medicines already comprise a multi-billion-dollar industry. Therefore, Zambia needs to explore this avenue by investing in research on traditional cures and develop a patent system for indigenous knowledge. We've also observed that there is limited technical expertise which hinders research and development potential that is necessary for the industry to thrive. Equally, collaborative linkages tend to hamper advancements in innovation, science, and technology. Therefore, the low levels of research and development inhibit increased opportunities for collaboration among stakeholders within the pharmaceutical industry whose role is to scale up and commercialize pharmaceutical products. There is need to increase engagement with development partners as well as attract private sector financing in the development of clinical research in order to advance the local pharmaceutical industry. The fourth challenge is that of excess duty, which is a major challenge in the sector since excess duty is charged on raw materials and products in the pharmaceutical industry, whilst there are no import duties on final pharmaceutical products that are imported into Zambia. Therefore, this disincentivizes the local manufacturing. Trading and disruption has become an easier avenue for Zambia to invest in the pharmaceutical industry, but then they would rather opt to import and distribute rather than manufacture locally because that's a bigger cost on their side. Hence, government policies need to be revised in order to enhance the production of medication locally. The final challenge is that of market share. So the huge capital investment that is required to drive the local pharmaceutical industry might take a long time for countries such as Zambia to recoup its investment from the domestic market alone. Therefore, Zambia should opt to explore avenues such as the African Continental Free Trade Area, which might open up a market to the region. And finally, our recommendations. PMRC urges government to prioritize investment in the pharmaceutical industry in order to support the manufacturing of medical supplies to meet local and regional demands. There is also need to invest in developing technical expertise and strengthening collaborative efforts among scientists, academia, and medical personnel in order to facilitate the development of clinical trials and research. There is need to offer incentives to attract personal capacity for technical development and expertise among scientists, academia, and practitioners within the industry. PMRC urges government to strengthen its engagement with development partners, as well as attract private sector financing into the industry. PMRC urges government to provide incentives in the pharmaceutical industry, such as the removal of excess duty on raw imported pharmaceutical materials in order to enhance local manufacturing. PMRC urges government to strengthen the legal framework and policy provisions that are aimed at encouraging pharmaceutical manufacturing industry to thrive. And finally, we urge the government to invest in modern laboratory infrastructure and position itself to maximize from the benefits of the CFTA once it comes into effect. I submit.
But in addition to this, if you look at the old manufacturing system, and I think maybe let's take 20 years down line, 25 years down line, we had a very strong manufacturing industry for pharmaceuticals. Okay, then comparing to today, when we had less qualified personnel, and now we've got more qualified personnel, we've got more graduates coming in the pharmaceutical industry coming from the University of Zambia. What do you think we would have done or we should do so that even the little we have today, the 10 companies or 8 companies we have, won't go into liquidations or go down if we don't come up with a very strong solution to this? What do you think we should do more than this to protect even the little industry which are there?
On recommendations, I think recommendation number 3, we are talking about the need to offer incentives. What kind of incentives do you think would help attract personnel capacity? Personal capacity in the development of expertise among the scientists.
I may begin from the last question that the Honorable Member asked with regards to what measures or what recommendations have we made. Have we ever made recommendations to ZRI with regards to what should be done in terms of incentives? So I think we actually, before the budget is presented, we offer our recommendations in terms of what should be into the budget or into the people's budget. So we did propose this year that ZRA can actually look into reducing excise duty or scrapping off excise duty to most of the raw materials used in the local manufacturing of drugs and allied substances. With regards to the other question where you had mentioned about other than the solutions that we have provided, what is it that we could urge governments to do? I think one aspect that the current government or the government should basically look at is that we could actually get lessons from the East African community and learn from them, get lessons in terms of what has made their local pharmaceutical industry to thrive. I think if you look at Kenya, if you look at Tanzania, a number of drugs or pharmaceutical products are actually being produced locally, and this has to probably take the goodwill of, this has to be a goodwill by government